It's time for our weekly conversation with the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan. Kyle, what's going on?
Not much, guys. How's it going?
Good. Does this one, even though, there's only 17 of these things, so all these games are big, but does this one just seem a little bit different because it's the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems a little bit different, but it isn't. It's still another game. We're still 3-3. Still trying to stay top of the division. But no, I totally get that question. I mean, the same thing. On our 3 days off, my wife and kids are asking me every second about Kansas City and how much more this one means, and I'm like, that counts the same. But I understand the question, but that's kind of, you can't make it that way. So I've tried to express that to the team. You know, it's about our team this year trying to be their team from this year, and you can't make up the past. You only can deal with what's right now, and hopefully we can handle our business this week. So it gives us a better chance of getting to the playoffs and hopefully winning the playoffs. And if we get to the Super Bowl and we have another rematch versus them, then I really understand that question. So, but the goal is to get to that point again.
No doubt about it. This one, to me, feels important for the obvious reason. You guys are 3-3, and you need to get above 500 to start separating yourself from 500. Because if you keep going down a game and then getting back to 500, the pages or the calendar starts clicking, and all of a sudden, you're sitting right around 500, and it's late November. Does this one feel like, just because you're 500, important to kind of start separating yourself from the 500 record?
Oh, no, exactly. And that's really what I'm kind of trying to imply, that, that's why last week felt like a must-win. Just losing those two division games in a row, or out of 3 games, and ones that we felt we let get away from us, and going against Seattle, and, to be 0-3 in the division and 2-4 at the time, like there was a lot to catch up, and getting that big win, getting back to 500, and being in a division where no one's running away with it, where we're at least tied at the top right now. That's what's so huge. We want to continue to stay above that. Hopefully we can string together some wins and get a lot more past that. But when it's all said and done, our goal is to get into that tournament, and the best way to do that is to win your division.
I'd be curious. It's kind of a two-parter. One, if you've had any, when you're watching the film, do you notice anything that consistently jumps out at you in your guys struggling in the red zone? And the Chiefs struggle in the red zone too. And as much NFL as I watch, I've noticed it's hard to score inside the 20 and inside the 10 this year in the NFL. I'm not sure why. I don't know if they're letting the defenses get away with a little bit more, if defenses are doing something different, but it just seems really hard to score for a lot of teams in the NFL. As far as your troubles, have you noticed anything? And is that a league-wide thing? I don't know what percentages might say on that.
I'm not sure if it's a league-wide thing. I always feel like it's tough because it is. It's any time that people don't have to defend the go route in the post, and there's nothing that can be thrown behind them. Everyone on defense now plays on their toes a lot more, so it's harder to separate. It's harder to run it in. It's just a lot more crowded. So that's always the case with the red zone. But it's it's something that I always believe that when you run the ball great down there, then you're going to always have a good red zone team. And if you don't run the ball great, then you're dependent on a lot of luck. You got to have some off-schedule plays and stuff. You always hope to hit someone clean in rhythm. But I was just doing another interview, and they were asking me some of the similar things. And every Thursday I watch all the red zone touchdowns from the week before, and I think there were 38 last week. And when you sit and you watch them, there's about 4 to 7 that are in rhythm to number one, and everything else comes from a little bit off schedule, and so some guys making plays, and that's kind of been the whole story of it, and that's why you count so much on a run game and the things that come off of that. And if you aren't doing that well, I don't care who you are or how many players you have, just dependent on that stuff isn't a high percentage. So you gotta have some sound football where you can run it in. You gotta always come up and work hard as a coach and staff to try to find some freebies where you can scheme somebody up. I think that does get a little bit harder, just the way this league is. Just like I said, I watched everything today from around the league. I guarantee everyone else did also. So it's a big copycat league, and people learn how to defend stuff once something works, and it goes back to just having to be sound. And when you do have to be sound, you got to run the ball better. And I think that's something that we and both us and Kansas City have struggled with this year.
Well, just tell Purdy to throw the perfect pass like he did to Kittle in the front of the end zone.
It was unbelievable. Like that was a one we needed too. We had just we were 0 for 2, and then the one that I thought had no chance to score. He throws such a perfect ball, and probably one of his best throws I've seen him make. One that because he didn't go to it right away. He came back to it a little bit later, and to throw that to the field on the front pylon. Usually, when you have to throw that a little bit late, usually you're holding your breath because you're thinking it might be a pick six, and it usually is if it's not a perfect ball. But it was perfect, and it kind of broke the seal for us, for lack of a better term, and we ended up scoring the next 2 times down there. So it was a big-time play.
Yeah. Talking to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan. We do it every week right here on The Sports Leader. A lot's been made about the Chiefs playing lots of man coverage. Is that overblown, or is that something you anticipate when you see this team or a Spagnuolo defense?
I don't think it's overblown. I mean, they do it, and they do it very well. They did it last year at a high rate. They did this in the Super Bowl. I thought they were the best defense last year that we played all year, and just watching them all week this week, I think they're the best defense that we've played this year so far. So they got a good secondary. They got a good blitz scheme and pass rush that goes with it. They're coached extremely well over there. They've all been playing there together for a while, and they got it rolling on defense.
I mean, we don't know Ricky Pearsall's status yet for Sunday. Great that he's back on the practice field, but is his skill set something that could benefit in the game plan and helping against man coverage?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ricky's a real good receiver. I'm not putting him all on. He's got to play in this game to help us that way. I think that's a lot of pressure to do with him, but that's one of the reasons that we wanted to draft him. He's very good versus man, and he's a good football player versus everything. So the quicker we can get Ricky up to speed, which we're working on real hard right now, and I know he is, as this year goes, I believe he's going to help us a lot.
How much you're a receiver, so how much is getting yourself away from man-to-man coverage about obviously technique and all that kind of stuff, but deception, getting them to think you're doing one thing when you're doing another?
It's everything, but deception to me has to do with you got to make guys freak out in a way because they got to overcompensate to guard something. So like when it comes to man coverage, it starts with the go route. Every threat. Yep. You want every route to be a go route, or at least the threat of it. So you get DBs out of their pedal. When they're jamming you, you get their shoulders turned from facing you. If you can get a DB's shoulders to face their own goal line, which is what they have to do to defend a go route, then you can beat them on every other route. If you can't get the guys to turn their shoulders and go face their goal line, then they can stay square, and you got to have really good feet if they're on you and they're not calling holding or PI, which they don't call a lot. Then you got to be able to have the strength to get away from it. So there's lots of skill sets that can go into beating man coverage, and sometimes when you don't have any of that, but your hands are just so good, then you're good at beating man coverage too, because the guy can be all over you, but you have such aggressive hands and stuff, and you're almost like pulling rebounds, and that's what Tony Gonzalez was so great at. He was such a good separator early for most of his career, but even as he got older and didn't have that skill set, like most people do as they get older, he would just post up and stick his hands out, and you couldn't stop him because his hands were so good. So that's something Kelsey does a good job with too.
Yeah, they mentioned that like like a basketball player, you just know how to put your body between their body and the ball and kind of keep it there, keep them on your back, so to speak, and then you just extend your arms out. And if you're good at keeping them on your back, they got to go through you to get to the ball.
Exactly, and that's a lot of guys are good at that. Tony Gonzalez was the best, which doesn't surprise me since we're talking about basketball players. But there's if you're between the man and the ball, and you're attacking it, and you don't have to bend your elbows, you can extend your hands and run through it. That's a ball that can be hard to catch, but I don't get how the DB stops it without PIing you.
Yeah, Antonio Gates, the other one that comes to mind, basketball to that position there at the tight end. Juwan Jennings out of practice today for the second consecutive day. I imagine that means maybe in jeopardy of missing Sunday. What's his status as of now?
Yeah, he's in jeopardy of it. I'm hoping that he can turn around here and have a good day tomorrow and feel better, but definitely right now it's no guarantee.
How's Mason looking?
He's doing good. We've stayed off him all week, just so we haven't hurt him or made it any worse. Put him in a blue jersey so nobody hits him too hard. He's doing good. He's had something like this before, so I think he'll be good by Sunday.
Okay, so why blue? Well, could you have picked why not green?
As long as it's not red or white. I didn't really pick the color, but it just has to stick out compared to the rest of our jerseys, so no one messes with them.
I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to go back to the Seattle game and ask you about the game. So when it gets to 23-17, any thoughts going through your head? Like, what are we doing? Like, we've already. I mean, I know you're not thinking about the Rams and Cardinal game, but yeah, I was thinking, well, they've already had 2 games where they're probably like 90% to win and didn't. And this one, you guys had. I mean, you basically had your foot on their throats until the kickoff return, and that seemed to life back into the team, the crowd. I mean, from that point on, the 23-17 point on, it was a really, really nice guy. What's his name? The rookie, the defensive player, the guy that got the pick from Florida State.
Green.
Yeah, Green. That was a massive play. But how big a deal was that for the team to be able to like say, okay, you know, it happens. Teams are going to have runs. They're going to score. You're not going to run away with every game. But just be able to like recompose yourself and take control, win that game.
I did think it was huge because, I mean, just like you guys are fans, us big time, I mean, we were sick about those 2 losses.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had those games won, and we let them back in it. And it's credit to them, but we felt we helped both those teams out. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And when that's coming in, when you can see that happening in a game, the last thing I want is our team to be thinking like that, is here we go again. But that's something I also talked to our team about a lot during the week, because I think we've gotten a little spoiled here over these last couple of years, just our own team, that, you know, a lot of these fourth quarters, you think of our runs last year, you know, we lost those 3 in a row, and we lost on Christmas to Baltimore. But besides those, there weren't that many tight games. There usually were a couple scores. If they got close, the offense kind of went out and answered, and we always kept it within 2 scores. And that's not really the reality of the NFL. And if you look back to the year before that even, you know, we lost to Kansas City, and I think week 7 or something, I forget what it was. And then we went on and didn't lose again till the NFC Championship. And not many of those games were close, I think, except for the Dallas playoff game. And you start to think that's the norm, and that's not the norm. That's not how the NFL works. And, you know, you look at someone like Kansas City, who's undefeated, and I think all their games but one have come down to the last possession. And that really is the norm. And you got to expect to be in those games. Whether you think you're going against a team that's better than you or worse than you, it usually does come down to 1 score. And you got to get hard in that way and expect it to be that way, and really enjoy the games that aren't that way, but don't think that that's normal. And for us to, you know, look like we were going to run away with the Seattle game, which I really thought we could have, you know, getting 3 turnovers to their none. And, you know, it really felt like we were about to do that, and that kick return kind of got them back in it. But I kind of, when the fact that we ended up winning, I thought it was a better thing for our team, because we had to win the way that we haven't had to a lot of in these last couple of years.
Yeah.
Kyle, we appreciate the time as always, man. Have a great game on Sunday, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. Kyle Shanahan, you missed any of that, available KMBR.com and the KMBR app, or if you caught it partway through, we're going to replay it for you at about 5:30 this evening. So good update there on what's going on with J.P. Mason. So we stayed off him all week, haven't been hitting him, hoping he's going to be good to go for Sunday. Juwan Jennings also a little shaky there in terms of his status for Sunday. Also, Tom, no, Derek, later? Tom, you pulled the Kyle Shanahan in that interview. Did you catch that?
No,
you forgot a dude's name like Kyle did last week.
I did.
That's a tough deal,
I did.
dude.
I forgot Green.
You forgot Green. Anyway.
Well, I wasn't gonna ask. So I was gonna ask the question, and then I go, God, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. So I wasn't gonna ask it. But then I was like far enough down the road asking the question. I go, it's gonna seem dumb if I just don't ask that.
There's a little bit like this, Tom. Here you go.
What's his name? Drawing a blank. Taylor. He got hurt.
Tolbert goes with
That was me. I pretty much said it verbatim.